something to do with the scrap leather so I can use it. And all I did is I took, these are straight out of my scrap bin. I make sure I've got, well, and that piece is 3.5, but I got plenty that way. What do we got here? I need what I need is 2 3/4 by 4 inches. And this one looks to be a nice straight corner. This looks like it's got a nice corner here. So I'm going to go ahead and use this. I'm going to use 2 rulers to make my cuts. The reason these are so quick to make is because I don't use a pattern. I don't use anything but a ruler or 2, my knife. If I want to dye them, I'll use some dye. Hit my 2 3/4. Uh-oh. Yeah, we're a little dull. I'll set it back in the scrap bin because I can make some straps or something out of that. So I came down an extra 1/4 inch. And that's good if I want it. Well, oops, I don't need needles in there. If I want to put a card in there, won't slide down quite that far, but you can still get it out. A little more work. So I'm going to go with a little slash cut on it. And I'm going to come down an extra 3/4 over here. And I'm just going to make a line right from the other corner to my new mark. And we'll cut that off. And that's all there is to that. So when you put it together, it'll look like that. I have it dyed, buffed off, tan coated the inside. We're all ready to start assembly. So I'm going to line my pieces up, and I need to burnish this top edge of the pocket. So I'm just going to line it up, slide it over a hair, and that way I can just make a mark. Do the same on the other side. And I'm just making a mark right below where the edge is. That's so that I can bevel the top. Where's my beveler? There it is, right in front of me again. So just every time I use this, I take a few passes on the strap. And for this, I've just got a small piece of leather with some polishing compound on it. And I got it, it's 3 ounce, so I can run the groove across here. I can run it across both ways if I want to. And then we need to bevel the top of the pocket. Inside and out. And then inside and out from our mark. You know what? I gotta round these corners first. Shouldn't say that. I don't have to, but I like them rounded. I want to make sure that I'm doing the top too. I can use my washer if I can find it. But on a project this small, I don't have anything smaller than this 1/4 inch flat washer. Not that it's terrible. Oh, that'll be okay. So I can use just my razor knife. And I don't try to cut it all at once. Try to make a couple of separate passes. And it might take you 4 or 5 to get around it, but it's easy enough to do. Everything lines up really good on this because I made my measurements properly. That's done. I'm not going to do that. I'm going to burnish just the pocket. I'll burnish the rest when it comes time. Gum tragacanth seems to work pretty good on this leather. And just my canvas. The canvas seems to generate some nice heat, and that's, you know, heat, little pressure, that's what does your burnishing. So it seems to generate a little better heat than the plastic or the wood tools. And you can see it looks pretty good. Well, I think you can see. Woo! There you go. You dizzy yet? Okay, so I made these marks on the inside of my pocket. I need to go around and I need to just sand that edge a little bit. Just so my glue sticks good. And with the front piece, I'm just going all the way right to the top. So I'm going to apply some glue, stick this together. So one thing that I was thinking just right quick here, I thinned my glue out a little bit with some acetone. And that's what a lot of people are going to tell you to do. I just don't seem to use enough of it that I need to keep a big pot of it around. So these little bottles work pretty well for me. Aside from the fact that the brush likes to come out. Or work loose anyway. You don't want to put too much glue on. So I'm just putting a light coat. And it'll be dry in no time. My glue dries pretty quick. Just because I don't put a big, heavy, thick coat on. I might use a thicker coat if I'm trying to glue in a lining or something. But most of the time that gets spread out and it's not very thick anyway. But I like to have my glue just a little tacky too when I put stuff together. Just in case I'm a tad off. So this is going to take hardly any time to dry. Blow on it a little bit. It'll be set up enough to start putting her together. If it's a little bit tacky, that's just fine. You want to line up your edges as well as you can. I like to use my bench to help me out with that, because my bench is flat. Just line them all up as you go. Nothing's stuck down real tight yet. And if you're going into a project and you don't think you're going to have to do any trimming, think again. It seems like every project I ever do needs a little bit of trimming here and there. There's a lot of ways to do it. It's quick for me to jump over on the belt sander and just sand it. But there we go. I take my hammer. Some people use a roller to set their glue. I tend to use a hammer. Just works for me. Back to get some stitching done. Get my wing dividers. I don't know what I got it set at. What I like for doing my stitching on these. Just gonna make my mark. I'm gonna drop a tooth off the edge here, and then I'm gonna kind of just press down, make an indentation, and that's where my first holes are gonna go. The one that drops off the edge there for the binding stitch, I'm gonna do that just with an awl. And this is just a round awl because this hole doesn't make a bit of difference. It's all going to be treated the same once you put your stitch in there. As long as I got it in my hand, I'll drop this one off here too. You just want to make sure you're lined up with your mark. Push it through a little ways. Probably have to use the pliers when you stitch it. Pull your needles through there, but no big deal. Where's my piece of leather to go under me? And I'll go ahead and start smacking holes in. I don't run my awl all the way through. I get it so the teeth are showing. So they're showing pretty good. But not all the way through, because it tends to make a mark on the backside that is less than desirable. Kind of blows out the hole. You know, you're never going to get them perfect. They're always going to be off. I probably should have just used a 2-prong punch and put them in there, but you know, it all kind of comes down to whatever happens, happens. So all our holes are punched, and they're all the way through. So I'll get rid of that, put my tools away. Excuse me, these are just from a cheap set that I picked up on Amazon. Mostly so I could have that, but I also wanted the other set, and these are 8 stitches per inch. I just prefer 6. Show you how I get this started here. The hole that I dropped off is right here. I'm going to go right onto my leather here, and where the 2 pieces are together. And I'm going to do what I call a double binding stitch. I don't know what it's really called. It's a binding stitch, but I go twice into it. Grab my pliers. Pull it a little bit. Don't need to make it super snug. And come through with that one. Run that one in. If you make that X, I don't poke myself as much. Pull one needle through, then the other. And pull them down into their corners where they go. I do like to put in my left needle first, then my right. When I'm pulling down, what it's doing is it's pulling the previous stitch down into the corner there, because this stitch is actually going to come from the top and go down. And it tends to look good on both sides as opposed to just one. But I don't know everything. So, you get the idea there. I'll do one more. I poke one needle through just to find the hole. And I'll just continue on, just like this. Poke it through so I can find the hole a little better. Get the left one in, right one, and then just pull one through at a time. And once you get used to doing it, it's not too bad. So this will take me a few minutes to get around. I'll turn the camera back on once I get to the end, and I'll show you how I end it. This little stitch with the crossing the needles like that, it ain't my idea. If you keep up with Weaver Leather, Chuck Dorset does some videos there, leather element videos, and he's got some really good information in them. They're really short videos most of the time, and that's where I got this from. This is the way he does it, and it just I like the way it leaves my stitching. Alright, so I've stitched it all the way up. I'm going to back stitch just a little. These don't take a lot of abuse, but I really want to bind that edge down. And when I pull these, I'm going to make sure that this one I pull down and that one I pull up. And then I'm just going to go through one more time from the front side, pull that up, and then I'm just going to snip it off. I didn't wind up with a ton of extra thread, but I always tie my needles together so they're always in pairs. Just one of them things I do. So this is it. I'll just take now, kind of melt those ends a little bit. And there you go. I'd like to say look at the pretty stitching, but really it's not the greatest in the world. Looks okay. The way that I started stitching there with that X pattern and using the one thread to pull the other down, this is a little easier to see because I used a black thread on this later color, and you can see all of it has a nice angle to it, and it just looks nice. So I kept doing that. I'm going to go ahead and burnish this. Make sure when you apply it that you're covering everything that you opened up when you did your edge beveling, because that'll leave kind of a little bit of a raw edge, and you want to make sure that's covered. I just use my finger in the gum trag. Hasn't hurt me yet, so I'm gonna assume it's probably not gonna. Of course, it could be giving me cancer as we speak. I don't know. But we all gotta die someday. And you can see it burnishes up pretty nice. If I want to, I can give that a quick sand and it'll come out a little nicer yet. I can just top coat it now. Get me a piece of sweatshirt. I caught these on sale, so that's why I have 2 green sweatshirts. I'm wearing one. The other one, I just plain wore it out. Put the gum trag away so I don't spill it. And this is just neutral acrylic Vaseline. Let me zoom this out a bit. I just use a circular motion. Don't overwork it. Just apply it and let it dry. So I'll be back when I finish. I'll put a second coat on just like I did this coat, and we'll have a look at the 2 of them together. The Vaseline will dry to the touch pretty quick, and I'm going to show you. This is the tan coat. I don't like it. It's splotchy. It just doesn't look good. And that's why I don't like it. I might be applying it wrong. I'm just kind of doing the same process when I apply it, but it looks splotchy and it doesn't look very good. This is the Vaseline, and it goes on nice and even, and it just looks doggone good. Now this piece that I showed you earlier, this is done with the EcoFlow all-in-one dye. So it's supposed to be your dye and your top coat all in one. It has a very satin color to it, and maybe it's supposed to. Yeah. Well, stain and finish. I don't know. It's this stuff. And I bought it for one project, and it goes a really long ways, so I've got that little bottle, and I don't know what I'm going to do with it, but I have quite a bit of it yet. So that's kind of it. I'm going to go ahead and finish it. What the heck? There it is. Wait for this to dry. I mean, it dries pretty fast to the touch. It's pretty dry, but it's still, I can tell that it's not quite dry. So I'm going to let it dry completely, and I'll do the back because I haven't done the back. And this color is chocolate is what it's called. And it's fast becoming my favorite color. I really like it. I like the way it looks after it's been Vaselined. So that's it for the simple card holder. I got a couple other simple projects coming up. One of them is a minimalist wallet, and it's very easy to make, pretty simple. I don't have one out here in my shop, otherwise I'd show you one. But it's going to be similar to this, and you'll see it when we do it. Thanks for watching. Stay safe, and God bless.